Is it possible that we are able to transverse different realms, different frequencies? Is there a possibility of being able to connect to memories that the soul carry? And what if those memories aren't of a human lifetime, but of a lifetime lived in the universe, in the cosmos, on another planet? Is there a possibility that we're able to see those memories, connect to them, and remember what our soul has lived? Not just, again, from human lifetimes, but what about other lifetimes that may seem unexplainable? But once we're able to visit them, they begin to make sense, sort of like a puzzle piece that was ingrained within our soul's memory. This week's episode, we're going to be talking about extraterrestrials or aliens. I am your host, Dulce Crystal Ortiz. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and this week's subject seems a little bit out of the norm, much more so than all the other ones have been. And for that reason, it's because I have been able to go and help clients to go into other lifetimes. We have been able to transverse many different types of lives, not only human, but also things that may seem unexplainable. But from what we have been able to understand as a society, a lot of those memories seem to coincide with lifetimes that were lived outside of what the normal human lifetime would be, what we would call sort of alien life forms. And this is really an interesting subject because I have had a few clients where those experiences, those lifetimes, they were out of this world, no pun intended, but they were really truly something different. And it sort of gave us a little bit more of an insight into how there is this grand connection between ourselves and the other planets that are out in the solar system. There's a lot of information out there that I honestly, when I first started realizing these kinds of lifetimes associated with other life forms, my intuition sort of knew what it was. But over time, I actually ended up even finding a book that had to do with explaining how we are able to live. Our soul is able to move from one life form to another. It doesn't always have to be just here on Earth. It doesn't always have to be a human life. And how we carry a lot of information from other sources, other lifetimes. And it's really interesting because she was a well-renowned, recognized hypnotherapist as well. And her name was Dolores Cannon. And she has so many books out that actually tell different stories of people's lifetimes and how they were able to bring forward information that coincided with other clients' sessions as well. So she did a lot of regression therapy, and she was able to fine-tune it to a point where she accessed the superconscious mind, which is the part of the mind that is associated with the universe, with the soul, however you wish to describe it. But it's pretty much getting to the core of that spark within us, the soul. And in her books, it was interesting because she was able to have so many different thousands of clients. They didn't know each other, but yet when she was able to access the superconscious part of the mind, the information that came forward gave her different versions, different parts of a much more grand system that is in place out in the universe. She has this, I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 books in a set, but it's talking about the convoluted universe.
And that's especially interesting. These books are about, I believe each book is about 500 pages or more. And there are 3 or 4. But those books are especially interesting because they sort of describe all these different roles that are being taken care of out in the universe. Same as here in the society that we live in, like the company as well, the government, you have different roles that different people focus in on to be able to work in conjunction with one another, to be able to create the system that it does. So when it comes to the universe and the planets and all of the alignments and the movements that are going on, there are different roles that are being taken care of by different souls. And like I mentioned in my other episode as well, there is another book called The New Earth and the 3 Wave of Volunteers. So in there you will also get little snippets of information in regards to other life forms and how some souls that have come down here are considered to be part of waves of volunteers from these other planets. You get tiny snippets of these lifetimes that were being lived by these souls and how they gathered so much information and they were able to bring it down here to this lifetime, and how these volunteers believe, and they're called volunteers because the laws of the universe is different from the laws of man. So the way they govern themselves, it is guided by those laws. And because out there it's pure energy, pure like recognition of the universe work as it does. So everyone has their part to play. When it comes to Earth, it is far different from any other kind of system or planet out there, in that human beings are capable of having, ego and pride and all of the emotions. But the thing is, because we have the free will, the option to go either good or bad, it's sort of a little bit, the other planets are watching and helping with these waves of volunteers, helping to bring information from outside to be able to remind the soul when it comes down here, because it completely forgets almost everything. And it sort of starts over with a clean slate when it comes down to when a person is born. And because, we have all of these factors to consider of how we were born, what environment we were brought up on, what was the moral code that was instilled in us from birth, things that we learn, the people we're around, because all of these factors start coming in and sort of shape and change the way that we act and we think and we feel and we move through life. The soul is still there at the very bottom of it all, but sometimes gets covered up by all of these different experiences to where we begin to move against what it is that we truly want or feel. So it is believed that the system of these volunteers that have come down to Earth has been to help those that are willing to remember, to bring forward any information that will help others to also remember their source, their connection to the universe. And again, a lot of this information actually goes deeper when you do read books that Dolores Cannon wrote, because again, all of her information is coming from her experiences with her clients and what she was able to gather from all these thousands of different people, that it was just too much information to be really considered a coincidence, let's just say. When it comes to aliens or E.T.s, there is this belief, because it is unknown, that it's all bad and it's something to fear and it's something to stay away from. But actually, at the end of the day, what soul hasn't been around for a millennia? If the soul in itself is supposedly an extension of the universe, how old is the universe? Wouldn't that also mean that the soul would be just as old as the universe has been created? When I first was able to find or regress clients into other lifetimes, sometimes we would go to other places other than Earth. A lot of the times, when clients felt comfortable, they would begin to tell me just little things that would happen in their lifetime that they wouldn't be able to explain and they wouldn't share with other people because they didn't think anyone would really believe them or understand. And it would make sense, again, because there is so much hesitance to be able to expand our mind to the idea that there is more out there than just us, than just here, just this plane. Me personally as well, I have also had experiences that were otherworldly, you could say. And when I started sharing them, it's like you begin to also come in contact with other people that have had sort of similar experiences. Allowing the space to have people to be able to share what those things are sort of allows you to be able to know that it isn't just you. You know, you're not alone. There are others that have experienced maybe similar things to you. Now going back to the clients that I have had the privilege of being in a session with and being able to experience those phenomenons. So in our first story, this is a client that she was a woman who came in, and she didn't initially tell me her experience that she had before her session or throughout her life, different experiences. But she ended up being regressed to a time period where she said that from what she could understand, the simplest way would be she was in an electrical room that just had a whole bunch of different buttons and devices, and it didn't feel like it was here. Her sensation was that she was in outer space, in a spaceship, sort of, in a way. And when we were regressing or just moving through that story, that past life, she says that she wasn't any type of gender. It was sort of like just a neutral form that she was in, the best way she could explain it. And she started roaming about. She said that she felt also that she was someone who, in that lifetime, she was someone who did a lot of sort of taking care, maintenance of the ship in itself. And that was pretty much her duty. What she did was she went and was looking around the room, and she noticed that something had happened where one of the alarms was going off. So her job was to sort of go and find what kind of issue was going on with the spaceship to be able to fix it. She ended up walking over, or was walking from that room to, I believe, where the alarm was sounding from, the destination of that place. So she walked out, and honestly, from what she was explaining to me, in detail of the spaceship, this aircraft, it looked a lot. Producers of movies, they have to be some kind of like otherworldly life beings to be able to see those images, because it kind of sounded exactly the same as what we've been able to depict in movies and in entertainment. So she ended up walking through, and she says everything was like made of metal. And it was interesting because her body in itself, she said it didn't feel the same as when she is in this human form. This human form, it feels more heavier, more dense, more harder to be able to move through. And she said when she was in that lifetime, it felt kind of like she was just floating. Like there was a massive difference energetically to the physical body that she held in that lifetime. And she says that she was walking and she stopped at one of the, sort of like a window to where you could see out. And she says that what she saw was outer space. It was the universe. she says that in that aircraft, she's looked out and she saw this big, bright planet that was just there out in the space where she could see stars. She said that she saw a comet sort of moving towards that planet. She knew that because what she saw with those comets, like the rocks, they were sort of forming into meteors. So kind of like what we see here on Earth sometimes when meteors hit. And she said that she knew that one of those meteors might have been the cause for why the alarm was going off, and it might have damaged a part of the ship. So she already knew when she looked out the window that was probably the cause of it, and she was going to go in search of it, of, the damage that was done. She said that she ended up having just this immense feeling of just awe when she looked out the window, because part of her conscious mind was still sort of awake and receptive to the information she was gathering, but she was far deep enough that she was able to be regressed, because it is believed when it comes to hypnosis, the more the conscious effort, the less the subconscious, and vice versa. So she was someone who had already been able to practice meditations and things like that. So the more that you practice being able to shift from the conscious realm to the subconscious, you can sort of create a bridge or a link where your conscious mind will still sort of remember what it is that your subconscious is seeing. Majority of the time, people that don't practice this as much, it is easier for them their conscious mind to not remember at that moment. They may get snippets when they come out of such a deep state, or sometimes they won't even remember, because from what I understand, the mind, the superconscious or the subconscious mind, shares information that is only necessary to the person in their healing journey. Sometimes information is shared to where it's only meant for the practitioner to see, to hear, to feel, because there's always an interchange when it comes to doing any kind of therapy with anyone. There's always some kind of energetic interchange, and information as well. So from what I've learned and from what I've also experienced personally, I have had clients that have come out we get to a state of where we are able to access the superconscious mind. And the superconscious has spoken to me, because their tone will shift and change when they are in that deep state. Some will even be in a dead sleep to where they're even snoring, and then all of a sudden they'll start responding to my questions, but like in a different tone of voice. So I have experienced that with clients, and honestly that was fascinating, because that was not my intention of going that far. But again, our soul goes to wherever it needs to go to be able to heal, to change what it's ready for. When this client was in that stage, she said she could remember feeling just awe, the emotion of awe, and how she always felt deep down that she did believe in otherworldly things, in E.T.s, aliens, other life forms. And she just never really shared it, because she feels like the space that she grew up in, everybody else denied its existence. So she wanted to keep up with that programming. But deep down inside, she says that it didn't surprise her, or she was attracted to those stories of people who shared their experiences about coming in contact with other life forms. When she saw that, it was kind of confirmation for her in a way of how deep down her intuition felt like it was being recognized. It was right, that she knew that there was something else out there, and she got that confirmation going into that lifetime. She ended up staying there for a moment, seeing how the meteors were moving through space. And then she remembered that she had, a job to do. I think the best way, that one of the words that she used is like tinker, like a tinker. She was somebody who, what we would call sort of maintenance, but because the laws of the universe and other life forms don't see it that way, they sort of just explain it to us in a method in which we would better understand. So she says that she was sort of like a tinker. She would also create things on the spaceship to sort of make things work more smoothly. So she was always like kind of upgrading at the same time, keeping things fixed that got broken, but then also upgrading the spaceship and its parts to make it run more smoothly, more fluidly, to be able to also house in other life forms that they had on their ship. She said that she ended up going to that other room, finding it, and she felt like this spaceship was far more larger. Her sensation was that it was very expansive, and it was maybe almost like the size of a planet itself. But because of that body that she was in, she was able to move much more swiftly and quickly. So for her to get to her destination didn't take as long. So when she was able to get to that place, she found the source of it, and like her intuition said, she was right. She ended up finding a meteor that had actually gotten through some kind of source that ended up messing with an electrical box or something. I don't know, I can't remember too well, but her, details from what I can understand was sort of in that way. She ended up coming out of that lifetime when she was sort of in the middle of fixing whatever it was that she was doing. And she jumped back to the present moment. And I did ask, because she was kind of still in that state, I asked her if she wanted to continue more, or if there was anything else that we needed to visit in that session. And she told me that no, that was enough. And one of my questions was also like, what was the reason or the purpose behind visiting that lifetime? Her response was, again, being in that state, that deep state of hypnosis, she said that it was to help her. Whenever someone goes into that state of superconsciousness, they sort of talk about themselves in a third party. So that's like another way in which I know someone is in a very deep state, plus other things that you can see and you can sense in the shift in the air and in how the room changes. But her superconsciousness said that her conscious mind needed to have this proof to be recognized that what she was feeling was true, to confirm her intuition, to help her sort of bridge herself to sort of in a way to be able to help bridge her conscious mind and her intuition with one another, because she was denying herself so much and for so long that over time it was causing her a lot of harm, and not only her daily life choices but also in her physical form. So her conscious mind, stated that, and then I brought her out of that state of hypnosis. And always, whenever we come out, I always give the clients a moment to be able to share whatever else they sense or feel they would like to share. Like, what are the feelings? What is more clear for them? She ended up sharing with me after that she had never had an experience like that with any other practitioner. And she was someone who did do a lot of different practices of therapies and things like that. But she said that she never had been able to that point gotten to see it like another lifetime. And she said that when she was able to see it and live it again for a moment, she felt at peace with herself. Like there was a part of herself that she was denying and she was ignoring. And with this trip to this lifetime, she can confirm that what she was feeling was true, was real. It was allowing her to be more conscious of her intuition and to be able to trust in herself more. She also began to tell me about other things that she had experienced throughout her lifetime that she really didn't have an explanation for. And then I remember after that as well, it was very strange because the few times that I did see her again after that, she ended up, because I would have her, all my clients, I always put them in the most comfortable position as possible. And a majority of the time, it's them laying down on a massage table. So what she did was she lay down, and I remember she was wearing sort of like pants that went up to her knees. And so her ankle was kind of still seen. She was wearing sandals. And I remember when I walked around her, for some reason, I looked at her ankle. And on the side of her ankle, I noticed how many dots. I saw 2 or 3 rows of perfectly straight dots. It was just 3 lines that were perfectly parallel to each other. And each row had, I believe, 3 or 4 dots. And I remember seeing that thinking, they were perfect circles. They were perfect circles, perfectly aligned, perfect distance from each other. It seemed like it was something that was like connected to her leg. And when I saw that, I noticed like, oh, like that's interesting. What happened there? And when I asked her, she looked at it and she was like, oh, she's like, I don't know where that came from, because they looked brand new, like kind of fresh, but it's like, it was kind of fresh on the skin, but it wasn't bleeding or anything. It was just kind of like if someone pinches you and like right after it gets like a little bit red and irritated. That's what it kind of looked like. She said that she did notice when she was getting dressed that day, she felt kind of like a little bit of a sting, a burn on her ankle. But she thought it was maybe that, she had scratched herself or something, but she didn't look earlier that day. And then when I had her for the session, I told her about it, and she said that would make sense because that's where she felt that sting. But when she looked at the design, she doesn't remember ever having anything like that close to her. Like 3 perfectly aligned little dots, maybe needles, like close to her. She didn't recall that. And again, mind you, this was after that session where we regressed. So I don't know if maybe her soul in itself sort of activated some part of her, knowing that maybe she, from what we've heard and understood when it comes to other worldly beings, they sometimes come down here to visit. If you also read, again, Dolores Cannon, it is believed that any soul that was associated with a certain life form, those other beings know where the soul is. So they will come and visit the soul. But your consciousness is not going to remember. Again, read Dolores Cannon because she's really great at explaining those different things. I do love how it like sort of ties in all together with the experiences that I've had and seen with clients, and then what they've sensed and what she was able to also depict. And again, her cases were coming back from, I believe it was the 70s and 80s. So this is information that has been out there already for a long period of time. So going back to the client, she said that after that time that we did do we regressed to that lifetime, she said that she didn't notice that her dreams became a lot more clear, a lot more universal. She said that she was able to sort of see herself in that lifetime, or maybe in other lifetimes even, but see herself doing different things in other worlds, in spaceships, in outer space. And again, she felt like those were dreams that were activated after that session. She also did have a very unique imagination, you could say, because she said that throughout her whole life, she always had sort of this desire to create invent in a certain way, you could say. Invent devices that would help, like, her, her family, herself, just make things easier. She said she never acted upon it, but she always had this creative mind where she would see some kind of issue going on in her home, and automatically her mind would start to think of a solution for it and a device that would help to sort of make things better. And again, that's not like something that is very common. Once you start speaking with so many different people, the way they think and they understand things, it's not always in that way. So she said that she always had the desire, but again, she never acted upon it because she just felt like she wasn't able to really have a creative outlet to be able to invent in a sort of way, invent devices. And it's funny because she said that she always had that sensation, but after that dream, or not the dream, after she was regressed, she understood where that feeling came from, because in that lifetime, she was someone who invented new devices. Like she said, she was a tinkerer. She liked to create new things and at the same time fix things that were broken. And I guess because that was a pretty a strong lifetime for her, it sort of trickled on over to how she thought and how she felt intuitively in this lifetime. And after that regression, she had more dreams, and at one point she said that she did have a dream where she felt like there was like devices connected to her, but it isn't as it's depicted in entertainment, like in a negative way. She said that what she felt more than anything was just sort of calmness. She felt unity with these other beings that were around her, because she knew that she was one of them. And it's like when they communicated, it wasn't verbal. And again, this is coming from dreams that she had, but she said her sensation was that communication wasn't done verbally, but it was done sort of telepathic. When she noticed that, they were able to hear her thoughts as well, so she was able to like ask them questions, and she just knew like certain things right off the bat when she went into those dreams. But I mean, she did share that with me afterwards, or when she would come in with her sessions, and I just thought it was amazing, because how one event is able to sort of unlock and open that part of ourselves that may be denied or we may try to ignore, but it ends up being, once it's open, it ends up providing so much information about ourselves, our connection to source, to other realms as well. So that was a pretty interesting session. I believe she was the first one where I was able to have a person regress to that kind of lifetime. It wasn't a human lifetime. It was a lifetime as an E.T., as another life form on a spaceship. So I was really fascinated by that. And little did I know that later on, I would have another client be able to visit a different planet as well. That client, she was also a woman, and she would tell me that she was someone who had, done a lot of different work on herself, a lot of different therapies. She went to India and studied for a while there. She, tried to really reach, I guess, what you could call like a state of knowing or understanding of the universe and the world and what her purpose is in this world. So when she came to me, she wanted to try out hypnotherapy because she had never experienced it before, so as a lot of people say. But as we know, if you have seen these episodes, then you would know that hypnosis, it is a natural state, and it's just an altered state of awareness. So again, hypnosis is just, if you're moving, your conscious mind is moving from the here and now, the present moment, you're in a state of hypnosis. It's not very deep, but it's still a state of hypnosis. And it's natural that every living being, living creature goes into this state. Hypnotherapy in itself is just having a practitioner help you get to a deeper state to where you're able to visit different parts of your subconscious mind. But again, because at the time she didn't understand what hypnosis was, hypnotherapy was, she didn't understand what hypnosis or hypnotherapy was. She was pleasantly surprised when she found out that, it's, something that she has been practicing. I believe in my own personal theory is that any and all therapy that is ever done, because again, if hypnosis is someone going into an altered state of awareness, leaving the here and now, anytime you do any kind of therapy, you're going into some state of hypnosis. So my theory is that every single practice that's ever done, the base of it is hypnosis, an altered state of awareness. So when she was regressing to it, she had actually regressed to other lifetimes before and with other practitioners. So she said that she's experienced, other lifetimes, regression and things like that. And she ended up, when we're doing one of our sessions, we actually ended up communicating with the superconscious mind. Now, again, this is one of those clients that was able to show me how, when it comes to contacting the superconscious to that deep level, the voice will change, the tonality will change, the wording will change. It would sound like a completely different person that's just coming out of the mouth of this client. So she was one of the clients that I learned, the person that I'm speaking to now, or the energy that I'm speaking to now, it's still a part of her, but at the same time, it's connected to the universe, to the cosmos, or however which way you wish to word it. And that is the part of us that is connected to the all-knowing. So I remember we were regressing lifetimes. And in this session, it was interesting because, again, none of my sessions are ever planned. I always go with what it is that I feel intuitively needs to be done, and the soul is sort of guiding me in a way as well. So when she was regressing, we went into one lifetime where I believe it was like France back in like the 1500s. It was a long time ago. She was like an aristocrat or something of the sort. And she remembered being in a ball. We were in that lifetime, and then all of a sudden we jumped into another one, and then we jumped into another. I can't recall those because, again, we were just like moving kind of rapidly. And then all of a sudden now this, I will say, was very interesting. When we got to the superconscious mind, I felt a physical shift of energy in the air. It felt, how sometimes when you're in a space, in a place, and all of a sudden someone will walk in the door, and then all of a sudden the energy shifts in the room. That sensation, that was the sensation I got with her when we tapped into the superconscious mind. The energy around us shifted completely. When I asked her a question, when I asked her where it was that she was now, her tone changed. It sounded deeper. It sounded, again, it didn't feel like it was her conscious mind. It was that other part of her that is connected to the universe. And I asked her, what information do you want me to share with her? Because it felt like it was a third person. And they told me that we're here to show you what this energy is. Then I asked, is there anything that you want me to know? Because I do know sometimes information comes through that is for the practitioner, and sometimes it's for both practitioner and client, and sometimes it's just for the client. And she responded no, that they just wanted to show me how their wording was. They wanted to show me what pure love was. Like, that was the feeling of the shift in air that I got. was because the warmth shifted. We were in an office space where we, had air conditioning, so it was kind of a cool environment. But when we got into the superconscious part of the mind, she ended up, it just got very warm in the room. It felt like the air was still circulating, but again, it felt very warm, very peaceful, very calm. It felt like there was a presence that was, well, from what her superconscious was saying, it was the presence of love, of pure love. That's actually the only time that I've ever felt that presence specifically. And it was the most beautiful feeling that I've ever had, because I was consciously aware, again, I'm the practitioner, I'm here guiding her. And even though she was in such a deep state, I could remember vividly how it felt, the feelings of warmth and comfort and just feeling safe totally and completely. Her superconscious had said that it was showing me specifically because she didn't actually remember. She didn't remember that part of the session because she was so far gone. She said that she just remembers like nothing, and then her coming back out of she remembers going into that French lifetime and then jumping to another lifetime, and then all of a sudden it just like went dark for her, that she didn't remember consciously what else happened after that. And until I told her what it is that I experienced when she was in that state, it showed it. She ended up, or the superconscious mind ended up sharing that information, and it was a beautiful experience to have, because to this day, like, I could still remember it and sort of relive it like in my own mind whenever I want to feel that feeling of just pure safety and goodness, kindness, peace. And to also remember like how the shift in the air happened even physically. Like it was very fascinating. But this client as well, when we did that lifetime, her superconscious ended up also sharing that her soul in itself was one that had come from another planet, basically. And that she was someone who was here in this lifetime. She didn't know what her purpose was. She was kind of still in search of that. And her superconscious mind was saying that her purpose is to help sort of bring or bridge a gap between, the best way to explain it would be, her purpose is to bridge the gap between the human knowing that there are other life forms that are around them, and to sort of accept that it isn't just us, like human beings, that exist, if that makes any sense. So her superconscious mind shared that and said that slowly her awareness will come forward, but she's still in the process of it, because it also shared that she wasn't just another being from outer space. She was also another creature, another life form that sort of inhabits Earth, but it's not one that is seen or viewed or even recognized fully. Like, there have been myths and stories about this creature, or these creatures existing in the forest area, actually, specifically. She was actually someone who also came from those life forms. So it's kind of like her soul was able to visit so many different places, so many different versions of lives that sort of coincide with one another, but at the same time it's like they still haven't had a connection, a full-on connection of understanding and knowing of each other yet. And her purpose, again, it's over time that it will be building for her to recognize what it is that she must do to bridge that gap between knowing. She had to first, heal a lot of old wounds before she was able to do that. and also have the strength to do that, to share that knowing and that knowledge that she carries within herself. And when we got out of that session, she says that she would have, I asked her, is there anything, any part of the session in which you remember, you have any questions about, and she told me, she asked me, what happened after this lifetime, because after that I just remember coming back out of the session. And that's when I told her, oh no, we spoke with the superconscious mind, and I told her that I told her about the information that was shared with me, that she was a soul that had been in other bodies, in other life forms, other creatures and aliens and E.T.s. And it's sort of like her soul was sort of gathering this information from these different places to again come down here and bridge the gap of the connection of all of these different beings. She was very surprised when she came out of the session after I told her that, because she told me that throughout her lifetime she had also been someone who had felt the presence of other creatures, especially if she went out to dense forest areas. I think she mentioned that she was brought up close to a forest, and she said that she always felt very at peace being there and visiting those spaces. She didn't understand why she had that feeling, but she never was afraid. She always felt like she was invited in, and she always had a great time. She could sense these different creatures around her, but she could never really see them physically. It was more of a sensation. And she said that when it also came to aliens and E.T.s and things like that, she did wholeheartedly believe in them. It's interesting because bringing attention to it now in the sessions I've had with these clients and now sharing it on this podcast, it's we can make a connection and see that there is more to this than us. There is more out there. There are others who can bridge that gap of knowing, of sort of kinship. It's not just us that are here floating on this big rock in this universe. There are other life forms out there, and it's we don't have to be afraid. What reason is there to be afraid of other beings? I mean, sometimes it's scarier knowing human beings than it is another creature from another environment. Because again, there is, from what I have understood from my readings, the emotions that we feel as human beings, the ego that we carry as humans, it's unique in itself because only we have that feeling, if that makes any sense. As human beings, we are the only ones in the universe, from what I have understood from readings and teachings, is that human beings are the only ones that feel and think the way that we do, with pride, with ego, with dense negative emotions. Those don't exist out in other life forms that live out in the universe. Again, this is something that I have come to learn from different readings, different teachers, different writers, and also with my own therapy and healing. I've been able to tap into intuition, and again, there's a lot of understanding there that coincide with one another. So that would make sense in a way, because look at what we do as human beings. Sometimes we cause so much damage, not only to ourselves, but also to those around us, to supposedly people that we care about and we love. And it's can you imagine if a whole universe actually functioned in that way? We probably wouldn't exist. We probably would have ended up destroying the whole universe. It's just, that's just the way that man functions, humanity functions. And because we have the option of free will and to decide which side we wish to be governed by the most, do you want to be, you want to go down the negative route, or do you want to go the positive route? And this is where it's sort of we begin to forget that we have a lot more power within ourselves than we realize. With that, I will leave you for the next episode, because the next episode we will go into the subject of our power center. and how it can be misplaced, how it can be given away, it can be hidden. And that's going to be a topic for next week. So I do want to thank you again for joining me this week. Do feel free to follow me on all my social medias. I will have the links down below. Also, if you wish to support the channel, and you can become a member on Patreon. And it's really fun because every week, if you become a Patreon member, we are able to do a group hypnotherapy session. And if you feel like maybe you would like to have a one-on-one session with myself, that is also available. You can just go ahead and click on the link down below. I will have all of that information down there. And I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.